Let me welcome to our studios some of the actors that saw that poignant day in history. Let me welcome Director General MQ Abiola Campaign Organization, Hope 93, Senator Jonathan Swingina. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
I also have in the studio a journalist, public affairs analyst, and politician, Ibrahim Modibo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
If we want to say some, and my next guest from our News 24 studio has blood ties to this particular date in history. Let me welcome daughter of the acclaimed winner of the June 12 election, Rinsola Abiola. Thank you for joining us.
Happy Democracy Day.
All right, let's start this way. I saw you looking keenly at that report, seeing some of the pictures, some of the adverts, MKO, Kingibe, SDP, Action. You were looking at some of those, pictures. What memories do those pictures evoke in you?
Thank you, Fisayo. First, let me say Happy Democracy Day, Nigeria. And I'd like to thank the President again for remembering this day and making it a permanent date in history for all Nigerians. When I looked at the photographs, the first thing I saw, of course, is our principal, Chief MQ Abiola, very, very active, moving around with a lot of people, and also with me by the side, with my wallet under my armpit, and many other people that I personally know. And I felt that this was a glorious moment in the march to democracy in Nigeria, indeed even in Africa. And so sometimes a feeling of nostalgia, a feeling of some sadness that this didn't happen. But with the passage of time and the evolution of events, one can say that some remedial measures have been taken, and the matter has in many ways been addressed by this government in a frontal, positive manner. And I would say that this has resulted in this Democracy Day. This Democracy Day has become very seminal in many ways. It's been celebrated in many ways. The President himself appeared almost 3 times. An interview, a lengthy one with Arise television, another interview with the NTA, and then the broadcast. We've not seen the President in 3 different appearances talking to Nigerians in that manner many times. So I think that again underscores the importance of that day. There are seminars going on, some places in Lagos, in Ogun, and other places, and the day is a day of holiday. So I think a mark of honor has been given to that date, and I think many, on behalf of the campaign organization, I'd like to thank the government again and thank Nigerians for remembering this day in a very distinguished way.
Let me go to News 24 studios. Rinsola, you saw those pictures. You've been seated for a while. You're looking at those pictures and the reports, of course, before that. That, phrase, or can we say the sentence in the national anthem, the labors of our heroes past shall not be in vain, seems very poignant when we see those pictures. What are your comments at this time?
I think, as I said, back when June 12 was officially designated Democracy Day, that act alone actually fulfills that part of our national anthem, the labor of our heroes past not being in vain. But I think that beyond that, citizens also have a role to play in ensuring that the labors of our heroes past are truly not in vain. I'm going to go to the issue of the continuous voter registration exercise starting later this month. It gives everyone an opportunity to participate in our democracy. Our democracy was hard fought, and I would like to use this opportunity to call on every Nigerian who is yet to register to vote to do so this month once the CVR exercise begins and before it closes, so that they're able to cast their vote in the upcoming elections. Our democracy is only as strong as our elections, and to get a truly representative democracy, we need as many of our eligible citizens as possible participating in the electoral process.
Your dad and a lot of other, heroes of our democracy have left a big, big shoes to fill. And for someone who is directly connected to this struggle, does that place bigger responsibility on you to make sure that in your capacity you continue to, you know, promote the ideals of democracy and remind people of where we are coming from?
Very actively involved in politics. Now, I can't say whether that is because of my background or it's just the passion and the interest that is there, but I actually feel like having, you know, been a direct descendant of such a great man actually definitely places a huge responsibility on all of our shoulders. But beyond that, Chief MK Abiola was a father for everybody. He was a man of the people, for the people. He was there for everyone, reached out to everyone. Everything he did was extremely patriotic. He just wanted a better life for Nigerians, wanted everybody to be able to say a very firm farewell to poverty. And I believe, you know, that places that responsibility on every single Nigerian. We need to go beyond just talking about government, you know, talking about democracy, to actively wanting to participate in it, to honor the sacrifice of those who paved the way for the democracy that we enjoy today.
An actor, this time, you know, is a public affairs analyst as well, Ibrahim Modibo. Well, you saw this from the sidelines, and you saw what happened. And your generation of politicians now in the Fourth Republic, are we still echoing that, you know, spirit of sacrifice, you know, public service, national good before personal aggrandizement in today's politics?
Thank you very much, Fisayo. Before I go into the nitty-gritties of this question, let me join my elder statesman, my teacher, and my mentor in politics, Professor Senator Silas Zungina, in commending Mr. President for this unprecedented gesture in trying to bring June 12th, making it alive. By this single declaration of Mr. President, it has definitely healed a lot of wounds. I will just pray that may the soul of Chief MK Abiola rest in perfect peace, and may God in his infinite mercies console and comfort friends, associates, and his immediate family. Having stated this, in both content and character, if you look at June 12th, it's a milestone. It is one of the most freest and fairest elections ever conducted on the surface of Nigeria, or better still in sub-Saharan Africa. By virtue of the standard of June 12th, it is a milestone. June 12th is still alive, as I've stated. And I strongly believe that with this singular declaration by Mr. President, I think democracy from a large extent has come to stay. We will never again, we pray, never again shall we have a repeat of this kind of circumstance by professional coupists who have truncated democracy and have made Nigeria to turn back 10 or 20 decades back in terms of democratic journey. Having stated this, I want to believe that by 1993, I was also an actor. An actor in the sense that I was acting as a journalist. I was an SI editor. I participated in the electoral process in terms of coverage of events and what have you. So I think the memory is still evoking in my mind where I saw, where we used to see our mentor, then Dr. Jonathan Zungina moving side by side. If you look at the clip there, you see him there with MK Abiola moving from pillar to post, from state to state, in trying to campaign. The democracy then was full of life. The vivaciousness, the vitality and vigor of the democratic movement. You see campaigns being alive. You see people moving in hundreds and thousands going to campaigns just to hear the voice of Chief MK Abiola and what he has for Nigerians. This is a man that has touched almost every life. North, south, east and west, wherever you see, wherever you go, you find the hands of MK Abiola imparting on the lives of people. And therefore it is a milestone. It is a journey that has gone very far. How I wish that democratic setting, how I wish Abiola would have been the president of this country. At least it will save us all these problems of North and South divide. the problems of ethnicity, the problem of religion. Because if you look at them, MK Abiola was a Muslim, and he had King Gibe also a Muslim ticket. But who cared? Who are only interested in Nigeria, who are never divided by ethnicity, no religion. Now the situation seems to be different. Every small thing you think of ethnic, small thing religion, small thing sectionalism. And I just hope and pray that with the spirit of June 12th, I hope Mr. President haven't done justice to this wonderful project which I call the Nigeria Project June 12th. I hope and pray that every stumbling block towards our national unity, peace and tranquility will be turned to stepping stones for greater heights and national unity and integration.
Thank you very much for our first intervention. We go back to, Senator Zwingina. It was a two-party system at the time. Yes. What were the challenges? Were we able to collapse all our ideas? I remember before the, SDP NRC, we had so many other parties before they were collapsed into two, Libra Convention, or, different parties. How did it work, collapsing all those ideas into one political identity in terms of SDP in one corner, and then, of course, NRC?
Well, firstly, what the government did then was to sincerely commit itself to a transparent process. And I must say, because I was a director of MAMSA at that time, and we worked very closely, and we could see clearly transparent objective on the part of government, not to interfere adversely with the process, either from the INEC perspective or from MAMSA perspective and others. And it was to the responsibility of MAMSA, that is Mass Mobilization for Social Justice, Economic Recovery and Self-Reliance, that the evolution of the two-party system developed. In fact, in the MAMSA office, we had a table for SDP, another table for NRC. I was very active on the SDP table. Professor Muchi Azi was very active on the NRC table. We developed the constitutions of the two parties there, and then we brought them for government to look at it, and the two parties were brought. But something unique was done, which is that in the electoral contest under those two parties, there was option A4, which meant that you had to go back to your local government and be acceptable there, and then you emerged from there to your state, to national, and the rest. So no one was imposed, and that gave free rein to the democratic process, and that is why it was a very acceptable process. I think that we are virtually moving in that direction now, although in the current process it's evolving, which is the ideal way to go about. But at that time, it was through the expediency of the military, virtually suggested and applied by military fiat. But the development was done by civilians, academics, politicians, and during the actual practice, we had an unfettered regime of INEC, which was headed by Professor NEC, who was headed by Professor Humphrey Nwosu, and he did a wonderful job. Almost a wonderful job to the end, except the results that he was not allowed to complete. So that process was very transparent and genuinely so. And that is why you found a free and fair election. In fact, nobody ever believed that something called annulment was going to emerge from somewhere. This is a word we've never had before. And most politicians didn't know what to do, because we're used to fighting electoral contests, party A against party B, against party C. But to fight an election that has been won clear and annulled, people were really, really aghast. We in the campaign office headquarters had to actually sit down and strategize and plan and think and advise our principal what to do, because we've never had a situation like that before. We had to come to Abuja, try to reach the villa with various assignments and notes and messages, back to Lagos, all over, because it was a completely new phenomenon. And I think apart from the annulment itself, all other processes were in tandem with what was stated as an objective. And I think something must have gone wrong in the government. There was lack of unanimity on how to proceed after the annulment. And so that created, subsequent developments did not go as smoothly as was said. But I have never seen confusion among the political elite as during the annulment period at that time, because it was a new evil. We've never heard of it before, never contended with it, never heard of it, and said we had to adjust to it, fight it, overcome it, and then it consumed lives, real human lives, MKO's life, his wife's lives, other Nigerians, progressive elements, and many other people. So I hope that this Democracy Day declared by government will keep reminding us to go and copy the transparency of the government and of the electoral process prior to annulment, and also keep reminding us never to repeat the temptation of the evil of annulment, because you can plan what it will consume, but you can never decide what it will eventually consume. And that is what really happened.
You know, not to detract from the essence of the movement, you mentioned something there that you said, you know, politicians are used to fighting themselves. This time, they had a different, you know, perhaps the organizer was now the issue. But let's look at those two republics, these two republics, the fourth and the third. Of course, as you rightly mentioned, we didn't quite get to the presidential and see how that would operate. But the state governors were already in place, and the state assemblies as well. At the time, did it look like we were in the right direction, especially administratively, when you were looking at how it was taking shape coming from bottom up? We were just waiting for the president.
Yes, it looked like we were right in the right direction. And amazingly, the two parties, the NRC and SDP, virtually produced almost an equilibrium of a number of governors. 14, 15, in that balance. And so you didn't have an overwhelming weight of one party over the other, dominating the other. No, it was shared in a manner that suggested at least a carefully balanced party system. I also would like to say that there was the National Assembly. Unfortunately, at the National Assembly level, they were limited in terms of mandate of what to decide. In fact, they were limited to cultural matters, artifacts, matters of museum and monuments, non-serious issues. So I would say that it was a demented or defective
better shape.
Yes, parliamentary system. If it had been allowed to have a full-fledged constitutional responsibility, I think we would have had a smooth sail. So I think eventually the process collapsed in order to lead to what happened from 1999. But right up to that time, the system formally appeared okay. But structurally, in terms of the National Assembly and the limited mandate it had, of course, it was very limited in many ways.
All right, let's join Risola again. In your interactions in this generation, many may not remember as vividly as Senator Zwingina is giving us now. But are you seeing, perhaps, in this dispensation or this republic, are you seeing perhaps maybe younger ones who are also towing the line of people like your father in terms of their discussions, their outlook to politics and what they want to do in terms of impact?
A number of young people who are actively involved in our politics. I'm one of them. We have a number of young women. We have a lot more young men, though. At the moment, at the last assembly, we were able to get the Not Too Young to Run bill to scale through, and that really galvanized a lot of young people to seek to participate in the electoral process. And at the moment, we have quite a number of young legislators in the House of Reps. We have a number of young legislators across states, and I'm very hopeful that come 2023, we'll have even more young people making the cut and succeeding at the ballot. The level of participation could be better though, but then we have a number of factors that militate against young people's political involvement. Funding is one of them. The party system is another. It's a very competitive process, and I believe to really encourage our young people, the interest is there, but Nigeria's political system, for instance, is so expensive that a number of young people cannot afford to compete as they would like, even if they were to vie for elective office. So those are, some of the issues that we need to look at. But do we have young people participating? Yes, we do, and the level of participation is actually quite impressive, although I would want a situation where we have more young women particularly being involved in the political process. Of course we could do more. Minus just being in active politics itself, there's also a need to be active citizens. We won't all be politicians, but we can have more young people who will be active in the political process, in engaging stakeholders, holding our leaders to account, participating in the electoral process. We won't all fall into politics or civil society, but we can all be active citizens. And I would like to use the opportunity to call on young people who may not really be interested in politics or governance to be more interested in how the affairs of our country is run, and our states also.
Thank you, Rizal. Let me come to, Modibo Ibrahim. You are, in the center stage now. You were part of the last elections in your party, and then, of course, we've seen some issues we've discussed before, today's program. She spoke about inclusiveness, especially for the younger generation. I remember in my own generation, not necessarily yours, but you had student union leaders, people playing politics at the university level. You expected to see them grow and see them at local government and state levels, but somehow the path, to political relevance seems to be a bit narrow. How do we get this right, especially for the younger generation, and we don't keep on going around only seeing people cross party lines and all that, but not seeing too many young men and women emerge?
Thank you very much, Fisayo. Well, I was an active participant in the last election. I was democratically elected as a vice presidential candidate of Grassroots Democratic Party of Nigeria, GDPN. But 3 months to the elections, because of my passion and because of the commitment and because of the approach of Mr. President, I resigned my position and then joined the teamwork, putting in both human and material resources to see the success of the APC.
What are the chances of your victory?
No, the chances were very bright then. Because if you look at the GDP, it came number 4 out of about 90 or 100 political parties. We did very well. But in the spirit of togetherness, in the spirit of moving this country forward, we just strongly believe that we should team up in the spirit of the broom to move the country forward. Now, there are a lot of factors militating against youthful engagement in Nigerian politics. You see, for a very long time, Nigeria has been buckled under the full weight of ravenous and greedy political class, especially the older generation, who will not allow the young ones. One, for very obvious reasons. I'm not talking to my Oga because he has not been in the system. He has been a corporate all through. But there are some people that we knew were using resources. And for youthful engagement, first and foremost, you must have resources to fight elections. 2, you must...
Why use the word fight elections?
Yes, because elections, if you look at anything that's
become a battle.
Yes, no, anything that has to do with, people coming together to go and win elections, go and campaign, it's a fight. A fight presupposes, it's not the physical fight, but it is a kind of, how do I put it?
Stiff contest.
Yes, stiff contest.
A civil fight.
Civil fight. Now, if you look at the youthful engagement, why it is absent? 1, as I've told you, because of lack of resources. 2, the employment of third-degree, of which is all boiling down to also finances. And these boys, they don't have. Agreed. The youthful engagement, the youths were the ones that were made talks. But if you don't have the resources to fund this, you're not likely to win election. 3, the political space has not been opened. To be candid, there are a lot of young men that are interested in going into politics, but the civic education, the thought that politics is just for people, maybe never-do-wells, is also a contributing factor. You cannot continue leaving politics to never-do-wells. Because if you look at people like Professor Zingira that is here with me, he has been there as the DG with PhD and a professor, a senator. So many others are also there, very educated people, very sound, are going into politics now. So that notion is still hanging. It's just like a hangover on the psyche and mental capacity of the youth. So I want to believe that with the implementation of Mr. President's the young shall grow, the young shall participate in this politics now.
Not too young to run.
Not too young to run. Thank you very much. I think
young shall grow is a commercial transport.
Very good. Not too young to run. So thank you for that correction. So I think with this, the signing of this bill of not too young to run, I think it is given a wider latitude for the young people to pick up the gauntlet, try to come into politics and make it more juicier and better. Because if we leave politics, it used to be the tradition. While we see, even now, we see politics becoming a matter of do or die affair. You see people being killed, you see people being maimed, but that is not the spirit. The spirit of politics is the spirit of engagement. It's a spirit of intellectual capacity. The ability to talk to people, bring in authorities. Oh my goodness, when I think of democracy in 1993 during Abiola's time, you see people with power of oratory. They will go onto the soapbox, talk to you, the Maitama Sules them, all this Rimi them, or Jim Wobodu and all. You see, who are interested, enthusiastic in going for campaigns to listen to English. Good, well-architectured programs of implementation. And that was what we are going back home with it. And that's the spirit. So the young people should please come into politics.
Senator, you know, I know you want to enter into the fray. Let me use, because he was talking of fight. But let's put things in, in perspective also from your generation and what you saw. He was talking of rhetorics, the presence, the sheer charisma, and some of the words that stay with you. Especially me as a student, you hear something like, no matter how humble a cockerel is, he can't remove his cap. You can't shave a man in his absence. Things that resonate, you just have it in your mind, you can't forget. Today, a lot of people say we now have the politics of the tinted glass. They come, we see them, when they have been voted for, the glass is tinted. You no longer have access. The MKOs and your generation, we saw them even in soccer stadiums, coming, to watch and all that, galvanizing interest even in politics. What has changed?
Well, let me say that it's still going on. Not everybody goes in a tinted glass. I'm sure you've seen the president campaigning, most of the governors campaigning. They were not in tinted glasses. They went to stadia, they climbed soapboxes and talked. Now, with respect to the youths, I will say that most of the political leaders you see came through the same process of the youth. I was a president of a youth organization. I was also a student union representative of Azikiwe Hall in University of Ibadan. I was also a national president of Gongola students. So just like other students, but the youth have to just go up gradually. There is no retirement in politics. So there's no way you can wake up and say after age 60 you go. And this lack of retirement in politics is universal. Look at the United States, who has retired. Nancy Pelosi is almost 80-something. The president is 78. The opponent was 76. This is nationwide.
Globally.
Yes, globally. So it's the pattern. There's no retirement. So the youth should not be in a hurry to kick off the old ones. Once they are in a hurry, they will definitely be frustrated. They will be complaining about lack of money. They will be complaining about so many things because they read the process wrong. They should take part in it and grow in it. Let me give you a country like Nigeria, very large, 36 states, very wide. For you to become nationally acceptable, you must have a certain pedigree, age, some experience, some work you have done before, to be well known all over the country, to be trusted with power. Imagine President Buhari, even after becoming a military head of state, he still had to try 3 times before he was trusted with power, when he was already known everywhere. So it's not an easy thing to come up in a big nation like this, a young man, and just expect everybody to know you, trust you with the authority and power, and then with resources to become the head of state. So the youth should take it gradually, study the system, and learn to move along with it. With this not too young to run, it's a very good opportunity. But it should not be abused by the youth, because a few of the youth we have seen in places have had records that are not really pleasant. So they should learn and accept mentorship and tutorship. Most of our youths, they come up with ideas as if they are the originators of those ideas. They are anatomic to tutorship or to mentorship. Those that will mentor them are looked up with some disgust, and so they are not able to learn from the elders. There must be some mentorship, and that mentorship will grow gradually into mature politicians, and many of them will become excellent politicians. But they must know, for the nation to trust you with authority and power, you must have lasted long enough and done so many things. And that lasting long enough is not done by few years. It must be a process of decades. So you need those decades and use them wisely, so that when the age to be picked at the national level comes, people can trust you effectively. So it's a process, and there is no retirement age. I must say that. No retirement age. So at the age of 80, 90, politicians will be there as long as they are able to communicate.
All right, just talking about not too young to run, it's also talking about not too old to run. So that is, a center that, one has to look at, to still be able to get, people speak with some measure of conviction and believe, in state craft of their governor, and of course also issues of peace and tranquility, to a reasonable extent, especially those who they are in the forefront facing this day in and out, and we still have some cause for enthusiasm from that zone. Modibo.
Yes, in both content and character. If you look at the performance profile of Bruno Zulum, is marvelous. To a large extent, I see him as an emergency, and as somebody, as a politician that is emerging in the footsteps of Napoleon the Great. He has been doing very well, very articulate, and very focused. Since the assumption of this young man, that's why we say sometimes, if you give the youth the power of authority, they will perform. And Zulum is symbolic of a young man that is performing. Look at the way he has been confronting Boko Haram issue, this insecurity, at the risk of his life. He's been going head on to confront them. Look at, in terms of performance profile, look at the houses he has built. He has always been in touch with his people, assuming without necessarily conceding to some facts pertaining to democratic culture that will only limit us to 2 terms. If Zulum, or if the constitution will be widened to be given 10 or 15 terms, I am telling you, with this performance today, I don't see anybody beating Zulum in Maiduguri. I don't see. He has done wonderfully well. Look at the way he has been moving to his people, taking care of them, their food needs, psychological and also material well-being, taking care of them. Look at even in terms of performance profile in the provision of social infrastructure. Look at the schools he has been building. These schools are of international standard. Check it anywhere. Look at the network of roads he has been able to provide.
In spite of the challenges.
In spite of the challenges. Okay, look at even the secretariats and what have you. If Boko Haram destroys it today, by next day you will see Zulum electing this coming back. So you see, Zulum, I think he is bringing himself up as a great leader to come in this country.
All right, let's go back to the New 24 studio. And you were talking about Rinsola Abiola was talking about the youth and their participation in politics. You've seen, some of the things that emanated from last, exercise in terms of the elections. After that, we had a pruning down of parties. Have you seen maybe youth groups trying to, be a part of this process so that at least they have an identity in many of these parties, and their own blocks are fully in part of the decision-making processes?
Member of the governing party, the All Progressives Congress. I'm a member of the committee planning the Progressive Youth Conference. At the moment, young people within the party, under the leadership of our national youth leader in the governing council of the party, we're planning a Progressive Youth Conference, specifically for this purpose, to talk about youth inclusion, to talk about the importance of progressive ideals in our democracy, in party politics, party activities. And it's not just within the APC, although I believe at the risk of sounding immodest, I would say that we're the most active when it comes to really trying to reach out to young people and fighting to secure inclusion. But we have other young people doing the same in opposition parties also. And there's been a lot of talk among young people in political parties, or young people who are interested in politics, talking about, maybe we need to form a youth party. And that's not an idea that I agree with, and I've tried to make a number of them see reason, because what I believe we need to do is get into existing structures. Elections are much easier to win on the platforms of mainstream political parties. Get into existing structures, assert our value, assert our presence, and then also begin to struggle within those structures for enhanced inclusion. And I'm quite happy to say that quite a number of young people are doing that. And as I mentioned earlier also, we have a number of young people who are able to get through the electoral process into the House of Reps, state assemblies. The numbers are not quite where we would like them to be, but I'm hopeful that going forward the numbers will improve considerably. I also noted a number of things during the discussion earlier, and I can't help but point out the fact that Governor Zulum, for instance, is doing a great job in Borno, but when we refer to people of that age as youths, then in a way we're kind of like erasing actual youth. There's an age bracket that actually defines the age limits for youths within Nigeria, 18 to 35, and when we begin to refer to governors who are in their mid to late 40s or even early 50s as youths, it kind of erases people who are actually within that age bracket. When we're talking about youth inclusion, we're referring to those who actually fall within the youth age bracket. Perhaps we can extend it to 40 because, well, this is Nigeria. We have a lot of senior citizens in our politics and there isn't a lot of succession happening. But I think it's very important that we use the right term for people who are occupying positions of authority. Yeah. That's what
let's stay with you a bit. Apart from being a youth, you're also a woman. Is the path to political relevance any clearer today?
For women, so one of the things I'm hopeful about at the moment, still talking about our democracy, the National Assembly is currently reviewing our constitution. There have been hearings in different parts of the country, and one of the proposals before the National Assembly is the creation of, I think, seats specifically designated for women legislators. And then of course we have other gender-based organizations campaigning for enhanced inclusion for women. Nigeria is a signatory to the Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, for instance, and we're yet to domesticate that in our state assemblies, to actually make sure that in our state assemblies in the country, to actually make sure that women occupy a certain percentage of appointive positions. And then of course, looking at the party system, we also could do a lot more to safeguard and secure inclusion for women and other marginalized groups, young people, people with disabilities. But I think, everybody knows what we need to do. We need policies that would actually enable the emergence of women as candidates. But, actually doing it is where I think, the political will may not really be there. But I'm hopeful that this constitution amendment process will get to see the kind of changes that we desire in our constitution with regards to enhanced inclusion for women, better gender mainstreaming in our country's governing document, and that political parties will also implement the kind of policies that we need to ensure that more women emerge as candidates. But at the moment, I wouldn't say that it's very promising. There are states where there are no women at all in the state assemblies, and in such situations it would be extremely difficult for laws to be made with women's perspectives being included, because they are not represented at all when those decisions are being made. For our democracy to be truly representative, we need to have every segment of the population adequately represented at every table where policies are drafted, where laws are made, and where decisions are made and implemented.
Thank you very much for your interventions at this time. She noted the blurring lines when it comes to classification as youth. Some are young at heart and not really youths. Let's talk about some of the issues she's raised, especially in terms of the competence of the women folk, even with, let's say, the little they've been given and their performances so far. In your analysis and evaluation, shouldn't there be perhaps a bigger, larger path to more recognition for women?
Yes, but before I go into that, let me correct this impression by our wonderful daughter Bisola. You see,
Bisola. Go ahead.
Rinsola, sorry. You see, when we talk of youthful participation, with due respect to my mentor, teacher, Senator Zungina, he said there's no retirement age for politicians. So don't expect somebody that goes into 80 or 90 to retire. So if somebody is midway, around 40, 50, he's still within the youth bracket. After all, we had a youth leader in PDP who was 65. So you see, the Nigerian pattern might be different when it comes to political participation. It is not that youth that you think of 20, 25 or this thing, but it's all a product of the heart or the mind. Once you know that you have vitality and vigor, and you can withstand the rigors of politics, especially at a relatively younger age, like Zulum, I think.
But there's an official bracket, actually, which is talking about. But we will talk about the blurring lines. This perhaps will take another discussion altogether.
So to every rule, there's an exception. And you asked me about women participation. You see, the problem with women participation in Nigeria are also multidimensional. You see, women, by their virtue, they are weaker sexes. In politics today, you'll agree with me that money plays a very fundamental role. And most of these women don't have. Two, going for meetings. There are meetings that used to take place 3 to 4 a.m. Some of these girls or some of these women might not be allowed either by their husbands or by their parents. 4, the issue still of using talks. Women, by virtue of their biological system, they don't have that power to go on engagement, physical engagement. You see people snatching ballot boxes, running out with it. They can't do that. So,
but these are not perhaps.
No, they are very fundamental.
We can't be talking about snatching of ballot boxes as if it were a norm.
No, but this moment
Senator, let's bring your intervention in. For a long time, we've seen the youth being used as cannon fodder for violence. But the youth are saying they can contribute more meaningfully, even in administrative positions if given the chance. That is perhaps in an envelope what Rinsola has been talking about. Your intervention, sir.
Yes, I think she's quite right that the youth can be given a chance at the appropriate levels within the party structures and within governance structures. For example, I would regard the youth as very pragmatic when they are running for councillorship, chairmanship of local governments, House of Assembly seats, House of Rep seat, as a tutelage. Thereafter, they can run for the Senate, run for governorship, run for presidency. But a very active, vibrant youth who would jump straight without having tasted any form of election, councillor or House of Assembly, and goes to pick a ticket to run for Senate or pick a ticket to run for governor in an environment or constituency that is so large that the number of years he has spent in politics is not enough for people to know him well, not to talk of the money. You can actually have your money, but if you do not have that spread and you do not have that engagement and experience, you find that you just end up wasting your money and you'll be baptized in politics, when we baptize you, it means we take your money, discipline you a bit, you don't win, and if you are strong enough to come back, then we consider you. There's always the baptism if you come too early. Now, the youths, some of the youths are excellent in terms of party cadres. They run messages, they take minutes, they are not tired, they are very committed, they are single-minded. And once they can work together with the leaders of the party gets stronger. Most of the party machineries, the National Executive Committees, the BOTs and the rest, the real people doing the legwork, the administrative work, the write-ups, the seminars, the papers, the lectures, the speeches, they are young people, they are youths. So most of them can do that for themselves too. But once they are able to take their rightful position within the pecking order, and let me tell you something, in politics there's what we call a pecking order. If you come into a political system and you do not study the pecking order of a place, you will have a lot of consecutive frustrations. Pecking order meaning that there is turn by turn, a degree of maturity to the next, to the next, to the next. If you ignore it, at your peril. For the women, there are multiple problems challenging them apart from money. There is the cultural one. The roughness that women get, also men do get. It's not as if they spare us. They don't. They call you names. If you don't know whether you are your mother is really your father is really your father, go and join politics. That's when somebody will explain to you how you are not supposed to be contesting here because your mother brought you from another constituency. So the kind of rough language that women face, men also face. I know a lot of people who picked forms to go into politics, and upon discovery of their true origins, quietly went back home and applied for appointed positions. So same for the women. If you are a lady and you want to go into politics, you will not be spared this rough language. The thing is, if you have an understanding husband, an understanding parent, and they understand that that is the language and they trust you, they will support you, they will encourage you. And you may go there 1, 2, 3 times. In fact, I know a lady in the House of Assembly that was actually removed by men in the House. She fought hard and fought hard and fought hard, but eventually, so they go through a very rough time, very, very rough time. And especially that politics has become like a source of a career. So most men do not yet have other opportunities of income levels and career opportunities, business opportunities. They concentrate on the politics. So they give very little space to the women. If they have money to run, rather than empower a woman, they do it themselves. So this has increased the diminution of the role of women in politics. In the past, there were many, but now, because of this scarcity of opportunities, the men have become very gregarious in terms of acquiring much to themselves and very little to the women. If you see a few women that are struggling now, these are women that have in many ways been supported, maybe supported in their careers, or have been supported by their husbands and brothers and fathers, and they are still struggling and being supported. And there are not really many. You see the numbers used to be higher in the National Assembly. The numbers are actually decreasing. In the state, the numbers used to be high. The numbers are either stagnant or decreasing because of the restriction of opportunities, and therefore men become very gregarious, if you like, selfish, and they go after their own interests rather than to trust some lady to come and do it. And you find, I would say 80% of most women that come through have to come through the flank of a man who is either a brother, a father, a husband, understanding husband, and things like that. But it's a matter of, it's something that will change with time. It will change as long as we have persevering women, persevering youth, and it will require that the party system must create opportunities deliberately for youth and women within their structures. And there they will become, they will conduct their tutelages. They will have peer, they will have mentorship. And from there they will now emerge and go into bigger positions. So we can legalistically or through legislative effort compel political parties to set aside certain percentages for women, certain percentages for youth of between 18 and 35.
Because practically this inclusion also helps to get better perspectives of what is happening.
It helps to train them, and there they get the training. By the time a youth has spent maybe 5-10 years as a youth leader, you can give that person a position in the neck and he will do very well. So you have to give them the opportunities to do that, and I think that can be done by legislative intervention at the party level, and I think this is what the current constitutional amendment should attempt to do, so that we now give the youth and women opportunities to come up. It used to be worse. In fact, before independence, you find that the women in the North were not even allowed to vote at all. They were not allowed to vote, and then because they were not paying taxes as well. So you find we have come a long way from that period, and so we still have another distance to take. But I think we'll get it.
Just in a minute.
We will come back to it. We have enough time to actually look at it. You talked about baptism. You talked about baptism.
Yes.
And after the baptism, also using the theological language, there's epiphany. Okay, let's quickly look at what is happening out there. It's one of the early capitals of the country in Calabar, and take the ambience and the essence of the day from our reporters over there.
Thank you, studio. We are right in the heart of the city of Calabar at the Millennium Park. This place signifies freedom. It signifies democracy. And right behind me, we have an epitaph where legends, living and dead, their names are written to signify the importance of this particular location in the city, ancient city of Calabar. And we're talking about the significance of Democracy Day, June 12, and the aspirations. So I have here with me a doctor, an expert that will tell us more about the significance of this day towards the aspiration of the country.
When His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari came into power as a true patriot, as he is, he thought it wise to shift it from May 29th to June 12th to mark this great event of advancement in the history of this great country. And so, such an effort is quite commendable. And on the part of the significance of this celebration, I think every time we mark Democracy Day, it simply brings into us the consciousness of the fact that Nigeria is progressively making a headway. We may not be at our best, but I strongly believe, I'm a strong believer in the unity of this country. I'm a strong believer in the future of this nation. I strongly believe that one day we will get better.
Many people will not forget about the day. This is the day that the true democracy was old. That they did election, free and fair and credible election in Nigeria. I think we are moving forward.
When we say no to violence, say no to cheating, say no to a lot of things that's not good, that's when we will begin to see the light shining.
We go back there and queue back from that mistake and learn and correct it. We have not started.
I've heard it all from Nigerians concerning their aspirations towards achieving true democracy in the country. From Calabar, it's back to you at the studio.
Thank you very much. Hope you are enjoying the day there. You were talking about, you wanted to say a word or two about youth and women, and of course our reporter there's a youth has just been talking about Democracy Day in Calabar. You wanted to make an intervention before we went to Calabar.
Yes. In consonance with the views of most distinguished senator, you see the issues of women involvement in Nigerian politics sometimes is the women themselves. One of the major problems of women is women themselves. Believe me, if the Nigerian women will team up in the spirit of togetherness, look, women will be in trouble. Because if the votes will count, go to any electoral this process, go to all the polling booths, you find that men, when the sun is so hot, they get tired and they withdraw, they go back to their homes. But most of the times you see women either in rain or under sunshine, they will be there, diligently waiting to cast their votes. So if the women, it's good that these women are divisible, it's good that they are not cooperating. Because if they start cooperating so much, look, the men will be in trouble if the vote will count. But the only problem is the issue of money and also the problem of men ourselves. You know, we'll go into them, divide them, give money, scatter their votes, so that they don't team in the spirit of togetherness. But if they team up in the spirit of togetherness, I'm telling you, from councillorship, go to local government chairman, and maybe the presidency, they might win.
We have some perspectives from Kano, and of course we still have a report on women in politics, but let's quickly go to Kano so that we get an ambience of what's happening around the country. We've been to Maiduguri, we've been to Calabar already. Let's quickly go to Kano and then we'll return to the studio.
Nigerians had a sigh of relief on May 29, 1999, when power was handed over to the long-awaited democratic dispensation. However, over 2 decades into this journey, the electorates have expressed their opinions on their expectations in a democratic system of governance.
Democracy like this, Nigerians need to reflect and say, where have things gone wrong? What can we do about it? And that's the most important thing. And to me, what that requires is to look at one of the issues that confronts us in Nigeria, which is like a lack of accountability. You need strong laws, you need a strong legal system that will hold people accountable and make them respect the law, and if they fail to respect the law, there will be consequences. Now that is strongly lacking in our country today.
Some extent we can say that we benefit from it because we have a freedom of speech and the rest. But when you talk about development like infrastructure facilities, you cannot even compare this present government or democracy with military government, because they have achieved a lot more than the way we are now in it.
Same actors of the Nigerian democracy are the same enemies of the Nigerian democracy, because some of the governors we really do have in Nigeria do not really have the feelings of the masses and do not really believe in the democratic culture and values, and because they are actually the ones sabotaging the practice of democratic governance in Nigeria. If you look at local government administration, is considered to be a third tier of government and is recognized in the constitution, but unfortunately it's not really functioning well, and this is just only because of the influence of the governors, that they really do not want the local government to function well.
It's better to be ruled authoritatively than to be part of the colonial masters, no matter how evil it rules. We always argue on that. Democracy is the best system of government, no matter what it takes. Now, our Nigerian democracy is a growing democracy. We are at preliminary stage, and we are trying.
This bridge I'm standing on is the first of its kind in Nigeria. It has an overpass, underpass, and a flyover. It's a dividend of democracy constructed by the present administration in Kano State. Observers are of the opinion that when most of the daunting challenges facing these countries have been addressed, there is a tendency of this kind of infrastructural development cutting across various states of the Federation. From Kano, Samira Hamisu Shira.
Thank you, Samira, and I saw you very well on that bridge. I hope you come closer, because we wanted to see the bigger view of that bridge, but we will probably see it in some of your subsequent reports. Let's look at some of the issues raised from the respondents in Kano, entrenching democratic practices. Before I come to the senator, let me quickly go to Rinsola in the News 24 studios. Some of the respondents was talking about, entrenching democratic practices in terms of inter and intra-party activities, as well as even in governance at state levels? Are we promoting democratic ideals? Are we being too, in some cases very high-handed, not waiting for, response from the citizens before we take action?
Okay, so still learning the ropes in certain aspects. I made reference to the constitution amendment process earlier, and some of the things that I'm personally looking forward to would be the kind of reforms that we introduced with our elections, the gender and equal opportunity bill, other provisions regarding restructuring the structure of the federation, to have something that allows for more latitude for democratic expression, so to speak. And at the moment, personally, I'm not a fan of so much power being concentrated at the center. I feel like we could do better to have a more loose federation, so to speak, so that more decisions fall within the purview of those elected to lead or govern our affairs at state level. But at the same time, I would say that we haven't done too poorly, although there's always room for improvement. With democracy, it's a constantly evolving process. Our leaders have a role to play, the people have a role to play. I'm hopeful that key amendments being recommended for the Electoral Act will be accepted by the National Assembly and subsequently assented to by the President, so that we can have a stronger electoral system, because as I said earlier, our democracy is really just as strong as the elections. But at the same time, again, as I said earlier, citizens have a role to play, and we all must do everything to ensure that those we elect actually serve us, that our interests are protected as a people, that we put Nigeria first in all that we do, that we try, our best to be a lot more patriotic, that we participate more actively in the electoral process, and that we engage. After the work of a citizen is not done after elections, we need to ensure that we continue to engage power structures, we continue to engage those that we've elected, and that we continue to demand accountability across board.
All right, thank you very much for your intervention. Of course, we'll be talking about women in democracy as well very shortly, as we have promoted earlier. We will take the senator, as we were talking about democratic practices and entrenching democracy fully. These issues of imposition, issues of intra-party democratic practices. What will be your own comments on that, especially if we want to entrench democratic practices in the country?
Well, thank you. It's a very important matter to have political parties with the appropriate framework of democratic culture, because the party produces the manpower that runs governance. So if there is no democratic culture within a party from where they practice, then it's quite possible that when the representatives of that party go into government, then it will mean that good governance may be lacking because they have not had the practice before. But let me say that we are doing fairly well in terms of the party system, the structures of the party. We have the only thing missing in our party system is the absence of ideology, such that right now you find the PDP and the APC are practically almost the same organs, the same structures, the same objectives. You do not find ideological differences separating A and B. So that to me is the greatest deficiency in the Nigerian political party system. The second is that we need to have a commission that will regulate the political party system. The party systems themselves are unregulated. INEC is only concerned about the parties when it comes to elections. And once those elections are over, they pack their bags and wait for the next election. But we need a commission that will regulate the political parties in terms of their conduct, in terms of their auditing, in terms of their finances, in terms of their structures, in terms of all the rules required by the Constitution and even by the Electoral Act. So once we don't have that commission, then parties have a free rein, and where the leaders are not responsible, you can find a party, for instance, may run for a long period without having a meeting of NEC. And NEC is where the leaders come together and rebuke those who work for it. So if you don't have NEC, it means no one is correcting the working committee, no one is correcting the ESCO, no one is correcting the branches at the state, branches at the local government. So if you have a commission, a political party commission that will be guiding and regulating the conduct of political parties, it will assist our party system very, very much. Then we also need education. There must be serious education in terms of what are the standards of practice of political parties. The snatching of ballot boxes is nowhere a practice required for even winning an election. Snatching is the most primitive, most crude, most unbecoming and totally uncivilized manner of getting votes. Because as the word snatch, far from voting. So all these, if you have party cadres who are properly educated, there will be no need to go and do that.
Sure.
Instead of doing that, well, get people to queue up and they go and vote. And then you don't need to do any snatching. Or if anyone snatches, an example shall be made of that person nationally, that no one will have the temptation to snatch again. These are things the political party commission of political parties will be able to check and ensure that those are regulated. And we also have financing, for instance. If we want to put a cap on the financing of elections, we don't do it from INEC. We do it from the political parties. At the level of the political parties, where are the funds coming from? How are they coming in? How are they audited? And matters like that. So one person does not sit in one place, bankroll everything, and eventually says, well, because I paid for this, I want to have that candidate.
Let me interrupt you briefly. Can we still have a scenario, for instance, like we had in 79, a teacher, like the President Shagari at the time, get people rally around him. He didn't really have the funds per se, but the party people and people who believed in what he could do sponsored. Do we need to have, every politician be a money bag?
Why are you going very far back to Shehu Shagari? Buhari is a very good example. President Buhari, did he have any money? If I had to go to bank to borrow some 20-something million to buy a form, and in the latter election, people had to donate money for him. So he was as austere as Shagari himself. So that is still going on. In fact, let's say not as... No, at the national level, you give an example of the presidency.
What I'm saying is that, can we have it not in an isolated case?
Or like as a general case? Yes. Yeah, it happens. Well, I think there are areas, no matter how austere somebody is, it will require people with resources to come and help him.
Sure.
Otherwise, he will just go nowhere.
Sure.
Shagari that you said was austere. But people spent money on him. Abiola spent money on him. Akinloye spent money on him. The rich people spent money on him in Kano. And the other people spent.
So we sponsor an idea.
Yeah. So people, when they see you are a good material, they will come and spend resources and put you there. Because activities of political parties, electoral activities cost money. If anyone tells you that politics is cheap, tell the person that you should go back to school. Politics is expensive. Printing of papers is expensive.
Sure.
Even the manifesto that you want to print, it takes money to print. Posters take money to print. Movement of people, whether it's a tour or campaign or whatever, the vehicles are not free. The transporters rent them, and you have to buy petrol, and you have to pay the people who enter them. Because if people are going to abandon their families to enter vehicles and follow you to campaign, and they don't go to their farms, they don't go to their trading, you must give them allowances.
Yes.
Otherwise, they will not be following you the following day.
It's true, sir.
They will not. So whoever tells you that you don't need money for politics, he has not gone close to the exercise. So money is required. Now, the money that people tend to talk about, and when the American delegations were here to supervise elections, a few of them requested to host me, and one of the main issues they were talking about is how is this bribing people to vote? I told them there is no such thing as bribing anybody to vote. If they are giving you money, it means it's transport money for you. When you vote, you go home. They're enabling you to go home. Even in America, they enable their voters to go home, to vote and go home.
Sure.
I've seen constituency projects in the U.S. Senators will sit together with governors, arrange on where the airport will be before they come and vote in the House. They do this here. There they call it lobby. Here they call it bribe. But these practices are all the same nationwide, worldwide actually. So politics is expensive and it costs money. And campaigns equally cost money. If you can talk about relativity, that is, some are more expensive than others. Like if somebody is maybe more popular, more alluring, comes from a very famous political home, that can reduce the cost of the amount you are going to spend, but it doesn't take it away completely. So you must spend some resources,
sure.
Operational resources, not to carry home and go and spend. No, the operational costs. Without those costs, you can't even run a campaign from village, from one town to the other. You can't. You can go and try, but you know very well. Are you going to have your supporters walk on foot from one local government to another? By the time you go to one local government, the next local government, nobody will be following you there. That's if you yourself have the energy to work on foot. So these things cost. So we should not deceive people that politics can be made cheap or you don't need money. No. You need it. The poor people or people who do not have the money who get to high positions are helped by those with the money because they have been seen as credible candidates who will help the country. So they bring their money and put together. That's the money they use to charter planes. Do you think the president will go around the states in cars? They go in planes. How much does it take to charter a plane? A lot of money. So he may not have money to charter, but those who are sponsoring him or supporting him will charter it for him. And then when they go there, hotels, people have to sleep in hotels. They won't sleep on the road. Some of these people are very important people. You have to get very expensive hotels. And these hotels, when politics comes, they double their money that they charge for people who sleep there. So there are expensive things to be done, and we should not pretend that it can be done cheaply. No, it can be done at lesser cost depending on the environment or depending on the circumstances, but it can never be done free of charge.
Sure.
Thank you very much. You spoke, I was just saying, you sound so much like a campaign DJ. I now remember that you were the campaign DJ because of the insight. I was talking about, Balos Daja, who come to that immediately. Some people in sports have been complaining that the youths have been recruited to snatch this thing and run very fast, and we are missing a lot of athletes for our Olympics. But we Thank you very much, Amsa Musa Makarfi. I hope you bring some of the copies here at the headquarters. We are waiting to see if we can digest some of them. Don't keep them alone in Kaduna there. We want to be able to have a feel and read some of the things there. But let's quickly go to the News 24 studio. Rinsola Abiola, for your final comments on the day. First, your personal experiences with national hero Chief MK Abiola, and of course the legacies is left behind. What you also, the vision you have for Nigeria in the next years as we leverage on the sacrifice, the sweat, the tears, the national tragedy that of course now has become cast in stone as a reminder, a grim reminder that the collective will of the people must always, take preeminence.
Experience, I would say that it's a huge honor to be a direct descendant of such a great man, and although I didn't get to have my father for long, considering I'm quite young compared with most of my elder siblings, it's great knowing that he died fighting for what he believed in, and it wasn't just about himself, it was about us, and it was about everybody else. He wanted a better Nigeria. He wanted a Nigeria where people would have their rights, where people's rights would not be abused, where we would be able to choose our leaders, where we'll be able to determine our future. And he believed in this country, he believed in Nigerian people, he believed in kindness, he believed in love, he believed in doing right by people, doing right by God, and those were ideals and values that he lived by. And those are ideals and values that I also would like to think that I live by. It's a great thing, really. I didn't have him for long, but he lived a very impactful life, and that's something that I will always be proud of. Final thoughts on Democracy Day. It's great, as I said earlier, that that sacrifice has finally been acknowledged by President Muhammadu Buhari and recognized, and June 12 has been designated rightly as Democracy Day, like it should have been back in 1999. But hey, better late than never. And I'm very thankful, we all are really, that he decided to do the right thing, and I believe, you know, history will always remember him kindly for that. But you know, beyond just having June 12 as Democracy Day, it's very important that all Nigerians reflect on the importance of this day. It was one day where tribe, religion, you know, did not matter to Nigerians. Everybody tripped out to vote for a Muslim ticket, to vote for a man who they believed, you know, embodied the hope for a better Nigeria. Everybody tripped out to support somebody who they believed would deliver on, you know, good governance to Nigerians, who they believed had everything it took to deliver on his promises, to follow through, because he had already built that track record of being dependable, of being there for the people, of caring for the people. He's someone who himself was from poverty, so he understood very, very clearly what needed to be done. A businessman of repute, you know, an international businessman, a man with a lot of influence across the world. He was ready to actually do everything to make his country a better place, and I think that's something that we can all learn from. No matter our circumstances, MKO's story tells you that you can be great. No matter what Nigeria might look like at the moment, no matter how you might feel about your country at the moment, MKO tells us that you can actually decide that you want to contribute in your way to making your country better, and whatever it is that you believe in, stand up for it. Don't stop fighting. Whatever it is that you believe in, as long as it's something that will benefit the majority of the people, then it is a worthy cause, and you should give it everything that it will take. And for me personally, again, I would like to talk about the fact that INEC is about to start another voter registration exercise. Everybody, if you're of voting age, please go out. If you haven't already registered, please come out in your numbers to put down your name, register to vote. We need to participate in our elections. Democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. It's the most basic definition that we have. And if the majority of the people do not participate in the electoral process, then we're going to end up having a democracy that is not entirely representative of our demographic strength and diversity. So please, young people especially, older people, everybody needs to come out. It's not enough for people to say, oh, I liked this candidate at the elections, but this candidate didn't win, or oh, so there was very low turnout, and look, they're leading us. If you give up your right to elect your leaders, then you have to make do with whoever emerges, because I hear that complaint a lot. I have electoral experience. I had a lot of people come to me after the elections to talk about how they were not happy about how elections went. But when I asked, did you vote? Many of them went quiet because they actually didn't. So it's not enough to regret the outcome of elections, but the very important thing is to ensure that you participate. One vote makes all the difference. In Sokoto, I think the difference in votes, what decided the winner eventually was about 400 votes. So if you decide on election day that you're going to stay away from the ballot, you're not going to cast your vote, that one vote could actually make the difference between good representation and poor representation. And for the next 4 years, you have to make do with whoever is elected, unless there's a miracle that happens at the courts. So it's very, very important. We must not cede our responsibility. Our leaders have responsibilities to us, but we also owe certain responsibilities to our country, to Nigeria. We cannot make this country better if we continue to shy away from participating in the process to bring in the kind of change that we want to see.
Thank you very much, Rinsola. I want to say you are a chip of the old block. Thank you for your interventions today. We wish you very best in your future endeavors, as you also use the day to have your own quiet time, remembering the man a lot of people consider as a hero of democracy. Thank you for being a part of the program. We'll continue our discussion from here. I still have Senator Jonathan Zwingina and of course Ibrahim Modibo right here in the studio. The young lady has spoken very succinctly about the direction she wants to talk about, and she spoke really on the issues of hope and patriotism in spite of some some daunting challenges that we've had in recent past and in this Fourth Republic. What are your thoughts on this? And going forward, what are the low-hanging fruits that we should be looking at in our democracy as a kind of launchpad that could propel us further to know that this system of governance is delivering and can also even deliver even more?
Yes, thank you. I think there are some milestones that we need to look at and to try to struggle to achieve them. The first and the most important is we must accept that democracy has costs, and that is people have to sacrifice for it. It will not just drop from heaven. And that Nigerian democracy has come a long way. We may be complaining bitterly that some people we don't want this, we want to go separate. No, you will find out that we are making the kind of progress for a nation that many countries did not get to make. And I think we should concentrate on getting the country to look at the major elements. For example, we have to tinker with the Constitution. We have to have devolution of powers. We have to have this country is unpoliced practically. The criminals are more in number and have more weapons than the police. We need to increase the size of the police and increase the size of the military. If we do that, we'll achieve two things immediately. One, we will virtually eliminate unemployment or bring it down by 50%. And then still reduce or bring down crime by the same 50%. So we need to expand that number. There is no magic the police will do to combat the kind of crime that is facing us, and none that the military can also do. We'll just be taxing them. We have to have a Marshall Plan for the security, to beef up the security and enlarge it. Two, we need to reduce the exclusive legislative list and ensure that many functions go back to the local governments. The Constitution has been amended so that some functions of money goes to the local governments. And it's
currently going under review.
It's currently going under review. What we should now do is to ensure that we now empower the local government to take a certain responsibility in terms of security, in terms of other responsibilities, because money will now remain with them. There's a commission or like Federation Allocation Committee so they have been recommended for the states and for the local government. That should be done. We must also ensure that we maintain our tenure system and our rotation. We have no idea the advantage of the tenure system that we have and the rotation principle. When I was in the Shura Council of Africa and the Middle East, I was representing Nigeria there, and the senator from Yemen asked me how we were resolving issues of people remaining long in office, because at that time their president had remained about 32 years. I told them, no, here we have rotation, north and south. He was so excited. He wanted a copy of our constitution. I told him, no, that is not in the constitution. But if we...
It was a gentleman's understanding.
And we were observing it and are still respecting it. Once we keep tenure system, which is to say, no matter how much we love you, we can't keep you for more than 8 years. No matter how much we love you, 8 years, it's enough.
Sure.
And no matter how much we love you, after 8 years, this system goes down to the south. The reason we have peace and tranquility despite the lot of noise is because of the rotation and the tenure. For example, those complaining about the president, they only have 2 more years to complain, which is really not a long period, and they can put up with it. All that is required is plan properly in those 2 years. In fact, after this year, the last year is election, so nobody is even noticing who's an incumbent governor or president. But once we can maintain these cherished values, and we need to ensure that we have a constitutional conference, maybe we need to ask the National Assembly to make a law in order to empower a constituent assembly to freshly re-examine some of the issues that need to be amended in the Constitution, and examine the issue of devolution, revenue allocation, structural adjustment, and all of this. They can be done peacefully. You don't need war. No, you don't need that. And if we can do it with the current National, once the National Assembly is properly briefed, once the National Assembly is empowered by its constituents to do that, that will be achieved. More importantly, we must encourage the states to generate their own revenue. This culture of going to Abuja and collect money and come and sit down has created substantial docility among the states and local governments. And so internal generated revenue, in some areas, once the internal generated revenue comes, it's shared among chiefs, security, in other areas, and then the governor pockets the balance. They're waiting for Abuja. That will have to stop. So we must encourage revenue generation by the various states. And we should be able to, for example, we must take some items. Take the issue of mineral resources. Mineral resources don't have to be an exclusive legislative list. A governor should be able to invite foreign investors for their own mineral resources, as well as the federal government can also do the same. So these are things that can be done through legislative constitutional amendment. And once we do that, now let us learn something, that is decorum. We don't have decorum in our country. Take South Africa. I used to go to South Africa very, very regularly. The level of crime in South Africa is probably 2-3 times more than in Nigeria, but you don't see it in the newspapers. You don't see it in the press. And people are careful what they write. Even the journalists self-censor themselves. Not in Nigeria. The journalists will be the very first to put something on front page or in internet, now that the social media put it there, which may damage the reputation of the country and affect foreign investors. Foreign investors will go to places where there is peace and security. And when the individuals are themselves talking about the absence of peace and violence and other things, and then the businessmen, instead of investing money at home, they're taking money abroad to invest, then who are you expecting to bring money here to invest? Most investors will come if there is partnership with local entrepreneurs. But most Nigerians who can generate that local capacity just send the resources abroad. And the investors, knowing what is happening, they are scared to come down. So we can never develop unless we have decorum in the way we talk about ourselves. We insult one another with a certain relish. That has to stop. We are not the only ones reading these things. They are all on the internet. They are all on social media. They are everywhere. This freedom, we are taking it to a reckless level, to a point where it's harming us economically, harming us socially. Most of African countries know so much about our ills, even when those ills, their own ills may be worse than our own. This can be discussed in the framework of constitutional amendment so that we will know what kind of instructions to put down or the kind of dialogue to have with the media, so that we know exactly what we should keep to ourselves and what we should print out. Thank you so much, Senator. Let me let you catch your breath. Ibrahim Modibo is still here, and you know, Senator Zwingina was talking about, you know, things we need to do to position ourselves for greatness, and not in terms of potentials alone, but actually achieving greatness as a nation. The tweaking we need to do in terms of, you know, the Constitution, issues of security as well as financial autonomy, and more opportunities for administrative control for the local government authorities. What is your take on Senator Zwingina's intervention?
Yes, there's a need for us to critically examine the present constitution with a viewpoint to do some adjustments, or if you want, to a larger extent, restructuring, so to say. Now, if you look at the constitution and the present setup of local government system within Nigerian, within our federating units, you will agree with me that the governors have pocketed the local governments because of the joint account syndrome. You find now that local governments are just existing in name. You will see local governments getting less as 200 million or maybe 500 million allocation during the FEC something. But at the end of the day, what do they get? They get 50 million or 20 million just to pay salaries, and that is all. How can crime and criminality be avoided or be stemmed without necessarily empowering the local? Because the local governments are the grassroots areas. If we have the grassroots, the local government level functioning very well, honestly and sincerely, there would have been no need for mass transition of our youths from the rural areas to either Lagos or Abuja or capital cities. But because of dysfunctionality of the local government system, to me, the state governments, by their nature of not allowing the local government function, is the greatest albatross to our constitutional democracy. With these joint accounts, honestly and sincerely, the governors have been shortchanging the local government system. They don't allow them to operate. They don't allow them to work. In those days when we were young, most senator knows the local government system better. When, like some of us, even when we were young, before them, you find the local government system employing teachers, working, doing road networks within the local government, constructing hospitals, doing schools, attending to schools, then getting even inspectors to be going to schools to monitor the performance profile of the teachers. But now, do they have the resources? No. Because the government have pocketed them. The governors will only give them pittance, and at the end of the day, the rest, they will just pocket it. And they will make it like security vote. So, there must be a purposeful and comprehensive level of thinking where there must be a review. Two, I want to believe, or I want to associate myself with the need for legislative autonomy, as well as the autonomy even for the judiciary. Because the tripolar structure of our constitution, executive, legislative, and then the judiciary, must stand on their own. It is a prerequisite of functionality of democracy, and it must be abided to. Because I strongly believe if we have an enduring legislative system that is financially autonomous, it can checkmate some of the misdemeanors of some of these governors. Two, if you have functional democracy, judiciary, the judiciary will also be up and doing because they are not dependent on anybody. Neither are they dependent on the president or the governor, because already at the center, I know that the legislature, they have their own autonomy, the judiciary, but in the states, they don't have. That is why today, governors will meet, talk about security, talk about banning or unbanning, talk about all others, but they will never touch on local government autonomy. They won't touch on local government, autonomy, won't touch on judiciary, nor will they touch on legislative autonomy. And these are the dangers. We must, if we go to structure this, we must restructure this country in this line, because the local governments have stated they are the areas where all these young men and women that finish school and whatever are there. If we have development, if the local government is given autonomy, like the chairman will be giving out contracts, all this small this thing to the inhabitants of that district, and it will help in stemming this systemic failure in terms of security. Because most of these young men that are venturing into security today, you'll agree with me, Fisayo, that is because they don't have what to do. They don't have jobs. They don't have income. And an idle man, it is devil's workshop. You see, to me, the whole system that we've inherited up to the present, see it from the viewpoint of 1999 when this democracy came in. The system is moving from the sublime to the ridiculous, where mediocrity and iniquity rules. And therefore, there is the need for the government at the moment to step up the tempo. to stem up this thing. That is why today I'm so happy. Mr. President, when he came in also on tripolar structure. He's going to fight corruption, tame insecurity, and fix the economy. And then by the surface, see that he opens the political space for mass participation, enthronement of constitutionalism and rule of law, and also seeing that the ballot box counts. So in laying out this beautiful network of ideas and ideology, or a kind of agenda, the government, in its responsibility to the Nigerian populace, must be able to tackle all this. It has been doing a lot, and I have to commend Mr. President for doing a lot in terms of development structure, in terms of fighting corruption, because whether we like it or not, honestly and sincerely, the first 5 years of Mr. President, in terms of fighting corruption, he has done very well. Whether we like Magu's face or we don't like Magu's face, I can tell you, Magu has captured a lot of hearts, including my own, in this country.
But we have a new person at the helm now.
No, if history is not retained, infancy is perpetual. We must look at historical perspective of Magu from where the thing has started under this government to the present. I did not stop there. I'm continuing. Okay. That's why the new man that came should enter the big shoes, because Magu left a very big shoes in terms of fighting corruption. And if you look at the issue of insecurity, or let's look at the issue of infrastructure, Mr. President has done very well. If you look at the railway systems, just recently, Lagos, Ibadan has just been opened, Kaduna, Abuja opened, now Itapa, Warri, 327 kilometers opened railway. Now they are thinking of opening Kaduna to Ibadan, and also maybe by the grace of God, it may even reach Yola. So I just pray that the government has this plan. Yola? Yes, I'm from Yola. Okay. So if you look at the network of roads that this government has created, it has done very well. But all this has been overwhelmed by insecurity. Because of the level of insecurity, we've not been able to see to the beauty of all the achievements of Mr. President. The security is a major challenge, and I'm happy that he's trying to do something, but the security seems to be overwhelming.
All right, so let's quickly go to Senator Ozwingina, and I want to take this. I wanted to, wanted to help us look at it from the perspective of your time and now. The issue of parties and ideologies. We see people jumping from one party to the other and all that. Now, where is the place of ideology in our democracy and in our politics of today?
Well, that is one of the issues I mentioned earlier, that ideology is the most important and yet missing element in our political party structure, and that we need to get back to that. In our time, we associated the National Republican Convention as the right wing and the Social Democratic Party as the left wing. And if you remember, the famous catch by Humphrey was also a little to the left and a little to the right. But they were representatives of right and left-wing tendencies. Just like in the United States, the Republicans are right-wing, the Democrats are left-wing. So also in the US, everywhere. But in Nigeria, we need to go back to the philosophical foundations of party practice. And that is why I say if we have a commission on political party regulation, one of the things they will insist is a clear description of the ideological framework of the party, as opposed to party B or party C. If we don't have that, then all we will have is simply two structures, virtually the same name, well, not the same name, same structures, and all they do is change candidates for election. And that's why cross-carpeting from PDP to APC or APC to PDP is so easy, because there's no test, ideological test. You are offended there, you move to the next place, and maybe you have a problem with your chairman, you move to the next party. This is an area that we just have to work hard at it, so that the electorate will have a reason to choose between the two parties. Right now, the electorate is like choosing individuals, not parties, because there's no real, practically very little difference in the parties.
But the law recognizes the party.
The law recognizes the parties. So the electorate virtually, they choose individuals. Where they prefer an individual, they go for him, because there's really no difference between individual A and B in terms of ideology. We have to work hard at ideology, but ideology belongs to the leadership. The leadership of each party must set a framework of ideology, and we need to leave that task to the leadership to do that. But we have to make it as a conscious assignment. Right now, that is absent, and it's not good for our democracy.
All right, earlier in our discussion, we're talking about inclusion for youth and women. Coming back, to democratic practices, we're talking about elections earlier in the discussion. I wanted to ask you, and now I remember, it seems as if another element has been added. You start as, from campaigns to the, you start your primaries, then you move to the podium, that's campaigning, going on rallies. From there, you go to the day of the ballot, the election itself, and then now, before anything, you go to the courts. Why do we have this kind of cycle now that every election must end with litigation as against what we used to have? And or did we have that in your time as well?
Yes, there were litigations. If you do remember, the election of Shagari was eventually settled in court. Obafemi Awolowo challenged it, they went to court, and the concept of 12 2/3 came up, during which Shagari was awarded that election. And that is the most important point I want to make, that the courts are supposed to decide on technical matters brought before them by the parties. The court must never choose candidates for parties. But right now, courts have found themselves choosing candidates. Yes. The courts chose Shagari over Obasanjo, over Awolowo. The courts have been choosing other people. What the constitution should be amended to do is to limit the intervention of the judicial process to referring matters that are not too clear back to the electorate. If there's a matter that is not clear as to who the winner is, the matter should be referred back to the electorate for a by-election, so that the electorate will now decide who should represent them. There are many cases that people are complaining. The courts should not be the final voter, because the courts are now deciding candidates. And there are people who are experts at arranging judicial processes and waiting for the election to be over. And now they move to the tribunal, from the tribunal to the Court of Appeal to Supreme Court. They've lined up the process. And
so as a politician now, you have to keep that money aside.
Yes,
that you're talking about.
Yes, you have to keep that. In fact, the amount of money required in litigation after election is almost twice more than the one required in contesting election, because the lawyers don't charge small, and there are also rumors that some judges also charge. Rumors,
please.
Yes, rumors. But the most important thing is the lawyers don't charge small. So we have to amend that constitution and specifically outlaw final decisions of elections from the hands of courts. The court should refer a matter back to the electorate once there is a technicality that has been observed conclusively. Furthermore, I think it is also very, very important I think the constitution has separated it, pre-election matter and post-election matter. But some of them still do come up. Some judges allow the matter on principle, or maybe there's some fair lack of judicial process that affected him, and it's allowed. All those things should be streamlined so that this system is very neat. And I think once that is done, then we will know that you can take me to court or win in the court, but you will not take the seats. We have to go back to election. Once people know that at the end of the day they will still come back to election, they will stop going to the tribunals unless they are very sure of their case.
Ramodibo, you're a politician. we've seen a lot of smart, politicians in these cases, waiting for those processes in one way or the other. And, sometimes even when it looks as if, ballots has been concluded and the people some people just go ahead, especially as we discussed in terms of using youths as cannon fodder, disrupt the process because that will now make it end in court. How do we discourage these tendencies?
By allowing the ballot box count. That's the only way we can discourage all this. And also punishing offenders. There should be maybe a court that should be reserved for electoral matters.
There tribunals.
Yes, like tribunals. Let there be purely for electoral matters.
I'm saying there are already election tribunals.
Yes, but all these tribunals, I don't know. Because honestly and sincerely, if you look at the way these tribunals will be going, the lower tribunal will give this verdict, they will go to appeal will give a different verdict, they will go to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court might likely give one among the two, one verdict will come up. So there is no synonymity, there is no synonymous level of judgments that are in consonance with the dictates of the ordinary politician. As far as I'm concerned, a judgment of a court of law, it can pander to the whims and caprices of the judge. If the judge likes your face, he might give you judgment based on some technicalities, because they are experts. A judge can do two judgments for you, and we have seen it in this country where some people, based on technicalities or based on one reason or other, the judge will have to There's
a reserved judgment.
Yes,
there's actually reserved judgment sometimes if you have.
No, there are two judgments. There might be two judgments. So whoever wants to collect one can collect.
This is an allegation. The studio, Senator Jonathan Zwigina was the campaign coordinator and director general of the MK Abiola Hope 93 presidential campaign, and we also have Modibo Ibrahim, who also participated in 2019 elections, at least at the early stage, the primary stage of the election. Looking at the climate generally and the politicians we have working with the premise of senators' experiences from '93, the strategy at the moment, how much of it has helped to, put us together as a nation, as a people? We've had calls in the course of elections to call, contestants together to sign peace accords, parties sign peace accords. People being warned on rhetorics that may be so divisive in nature, and some even bordering on serious centric comments. How did we become this in our quest to, as you politicians say, capture power, that we have made the political landscape so fractious?
You see, in the days gone by, especially during the 1993 elections, or maybe going down to 79, during Shagari era, politics was modeled on the premise of rhetoric and addressing issues. You take to the doorsteps of the masses issues, contentious issues. You talk based on authority, based on your program of action. Very flamboyant politicians, well refined, sound, and also people that have been very close to the masses. You see, they look at issues from the viewpoint of politicking, which has to do with oratory. But now we look at democracy from viewpoint of the barrel of the box rather than the ballot of the box. Most people
explain.
Well, these days, some people believe in using the gun to snatch the ballot box and declare elections. There are so many people under the purview of this recent democracy that will just go and sit under trees and write figures and just go and announce. Or they will send talks when the election is going and they know that they will not win in at that political union. They will go and just disrupt the whole scenario. So they believe using the gun rather than the ballot of the box. Now, signing of this accord, since I started practicing as a journalist post-graduation after I finished my university, maybe 85, 86. Most of the elections that came that I participated as a journalist, honestly, the issue of all these signings of memorandum of understanding so that there will be no, it was not there.
Peace Accord.
It was not there. This one is a recent event. During the Abdullah period, the powerful DGs here, he can attest to it, that the manifestos and the beauty of campaigns lied in the ability to tell the public what you have to sell to them as a program of action. There wasn't this, I agreed, you know, there were pockets of violence here and there, but it's not as monumental as we have at the moment. And therefore, looking at the whole political system from whatever angle we look at it, from every parameter of democratic practice, I think the issue of violence, which seems to command a lot of attention in some of these political activities these days, is something to lament about. I just hope and pray that we'll have politics that is devoid of killings, that is devoid of maimings, that is devoid of using the gun. At a point, there was an order, I could remember, within this democratic setup, that the police should shoot anyone that they see around the ballot box and this thing. But then, the police will be handicapped. You cannot, if people come about 10,000 or 5,000 to come and overwhelm the police are only holding batons. They don't allow them even to go to this thing, and the army close to the polling booth with guns, because the international community will cry foul. The way the police in a democratic setup like this. So, and these people will just go and carry cutlasses, they will carry dengos, they will carry AK-47, overwhelm the place, turn the place topsy-turvy, scatter the ballot box, and overrun the place, just like a conquered empire. So, if they do that and they succeed without any reprimanding to this electoral fraud, that is the only thing that will continuously lead to our problems in the electoral system. But once it's checkmated, if we have a court that can dispense justice, and also all these people, like the Civil said, if anybody is caught, let him be punished. The punishment as an end credit will checkmate all these things. But once this is allowed to go, because a lot of some of these thugs, when they are caught, I have never heard of any one thug that has been sent to prison in this country. I have not been hearing. Once they are caught, the godfathers and this thing, by evening they will just go through the back door, go to the police station, and then they release them. So we cannot continue like this. Things cannot be business as usual. I thank you.
All right, we can't say that thuggery and election violence is a new thing, especially if we remember the experiences in the Second Republic. But how do we dissuade or de-incentivize election violence?
Well, as I said, the simplest way to de-incentivize election violence is to isolate areas that have violence, apprehend those found culpable, punish them, but don't award the results. Call another poll. Other areas that had no violence can wait. All those who want to observe should come and concentrate in this area. Call another poll and have elections contested and votes count. Once the votes count and the legitimate winner wins, tomorrow anybody who wants to create violence will know that by disrupting a ballot box, it just postpones the announcement of the winner. It doesn't stop the electoral process. Because what they now gamble on is that if we go and snatch the ballot box or disrupt the process, then it is cancelled.
Sure.
And the balance of votes go to the winner, most likely the person who disrupted. But if you refuse to allow that, it is not cancelled, it is held in abeyance. After the elections, you come back there and conduct that election, and the winner is declared. Once the person or a party knows that no matter what I do, election will still take place, most likely under saner circumstance, they will stop. And whoever is arrested, jail. That's why I said there should be a commission, a political party commission. This is one of the things the commission should specify. The penalties for disrupting election, snatching ballot box, they should all be part of the crimes under the Commission on Registration and Operation of Political Parties.
All right, what will be, let me stay with, Senator, what is your take on electronic voting?
On what?
Electronic voting.
Electronic voting, yes, electronic voting is very necessary, but electronic voting has to be done carefully. Electronic voting has to be done where the electorate, the people, the politicians have confidence in the electronic system. Because electronic system have been used in some areas in such a manner that not everybody is confident about the process. And so it should be done, but there is still need for manual registration, because with electronic voting you can't go to court and challenge some results because they've all been done electronically. With electronic voting, a wizard, a party can go and hire one electronic wizard somewhere and transmit the results on the dashboard, and then you'll be left arguing it in court. Don't forget, even the United States, the elections that were conducted, they had some manual component. So we cannot just completely go electronic.
And they're still contesting for interference.
Oh yes. We still have to allow a manual component that people can see and go to court if they are not satisfied. This electronic thing, while it is good, now the other thing we need to do is to go and learn from India. I don't know why we are so scared of learning from India. They are very large in number, larger than us. They are more, their variety is much varied than ours. And so there's so much to learn. And they engage in electronic voting. But their system is such that everybody knows what the electronic system is going to develop. So we need to study the system, practice it. But until then, we must be able to use the manual voting to be sure that people understand that electronic thing. So we need to do it face by face. We should use electronic voting for some local government elections to start training the system. We should also use electronic voting for by-elections. So all the mistakes that can be made should be corrected in local government elections and also by-elections. Then after that, we can now introduce electronic voting at all other levels. But we have to do it when there is full confidence in it.
All right, let's take another. I still have Ibrahim Modibo right here as we make the home run on the program for the conclusion of the first part of today's celebration and commemoration of Democracy Day. Looking at it, you know, since independence till now, in your evaluation and your analysis, are we maturing, and where do we need to strengthen our democratic institutions so that the trajectory of statecraft and even deliverables will now be further sustained and perhaps even improved upon?
Well, one of the joys I have is that under the current administration, or Nigeria as it is today, the issue of military takeover is over. It is no longer fashionable to have military dictatorship or to have beginners announcing the arrival of one emperor or one as a leader of this country. Now, it's left to us as Democrats, it's left to us as politicians to see to the possibilities of putting democracy on its right footing. We can only do that through non-violence and also through allowing the dictates of the ballot paper to count. Democracy is all about the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Therefore, the votes of the people must count. There must be rule of law and constitutionalism. And we are also supposed to see that the political space is open, wide open for mass participation. Therefore, I strongly believe that as politicians there is the need for all the parties, contending parties, to see that democracy is practiced under a very healthy and germane atmosphere. By trying to bring in violence, you are opening a window of opportunity for anything to happen. And therefore, if we want to have a stable democracy, we must practice this game according to its rules.
Politics without rancor. Let's go, of course. Our guest, Modibo Ibrahim, has already given his final take on the program, but we can't head without taking a word of wisdom from Senator Jonathan Zwingina, who was a major actor in what's culminated in today being recognized and being cast in stone in our memoirs as Democracy Day.
Yes, one of the things I will call on Nigerian politicians to emulate is not to be scared of merit. Chief M.K. Abiola was not scared of merit. He chose people based on merit, whether they are his journalists, his media people, his campaign staff, everybody based on merit.
Sure.
People are commending Zulu. He was chosen based on merit. Now, one of the greatest drawbacks of our politics is people, godfathers, choosing their successors on the basis of loyalty and mediocrity.
Yes.
Once you are competent, educated, smart, they say, oh, you are very dangerous. Yes. You will not cooperate.
That's true, sir.
You will be asking too many questions.
It's true.
Once we learn to allow merit to count in our political process, I think Nigeria will go a very long way. And that will be my last appeal to Nigerians.
Many thanks to you. Let's first thank Risola Abiola from our NTA News 24 studio, joined us earlier, also a daughter of Chief M.K. Abiola, and Ibrahim Modibo, one-time aspirant, also of course a political affairs analyst and a journalist, and also
a student of
your students. And of course we have had Senator Jonathan Zwingina, who was there throughout the process, the election itself, and when it was cancelled. Thank you for being a part of it, and for you also for joining us for this first part of the program. We urge you to play your politics for the greater good. My colleague Omini Oden will be joining us after at the top of the hour for more analysis and reflections on today's this special date.